AskReddit by Paquette Crookers. What fact is common knowledge in your field, but almost unknown to the rest of the population? People almost always try to exit through the same door they entered. In a crowded venue, always take a second to find your exit and then find a second exit. Mark them in your brain just in case. In an emergency, most of the crowd is going to go for the main door they came in through. Knowing where another exit is can save your life. Do most restaurants have an exit through the kitchen? Bamboo is a grass, is 100% sustainable, and the plywood made from it is harder than oak, is naturally antimicrobial, is water resistant, stores carbon like a motherfucker and has similar resistance to compression as concrete. Plus pandas like it, edited to add about the pandas. It grows super fast and can be easily harvested with a flying machine. Urban heat kills way more people in Australia than bushfires. In the 2009 Black Saturday bushfires in Victoria, 173 people died in the fires, but over 300 died of the heat prior to that. Also, most of those deaths occur at night, not during day. I've heard tell that if the city of Phoenix, Arizona, lost power for one day in the peak of summer, at least 30,000 people would die and half the population would require emergency services. UTIs will often cause confusion in people over 70. ETA. UT is urinary tract infection and some people can get confused to the point of hallucinations and delirium. It can cause increased weakness which also leads to falls. Second edit. According to this study, the confusion and delirium is brought on by the inflammation and immune response involved. Till https://www.cedars-sinai.org/newsroom/unlocking-the-cause-of-ut-induced-delirium/ I work in the mental health field. Often I'm told a loved one has dementia, Alzheimer's, etc. I will ask about symptom onset and they'll say a couple days or something similar. A round of antibiotics later and the loved one is usually back to their baseline. UTs in older folks are wild. When you're taking Imodium, you're actually taking an opioid. But it's designed to only interact with the opioid receptors in your digestive tract to slow down your intestines. Scientists were like, hey, you know that anti-diarrhea medication heroin? Well, what if we made a version of that without the pesky side effects of getting you high? This explains all those commercials from like 5-10 years ago for drugs that helped with constipation from being on opioids. Genetics. There's a bunch of stuff we don't report back because they are considered incidental findings. This can include genetic diseases with no treatment mitigation. Or non-paternity. If your kid is sick with a genetic disease and you go get genetic testing done for mom, dad and little Timmy, we do not automatically report back if dad is no relation or is actually an uncle. At the same time, in most places you have the right to request your data. Oh wow, how often does dad isn't dad happen? Powerful explosives are so insensitive to shock that it usually takes a smaller, more sensitive explosive to set them off. C4 will just burn if put into a fire. Soldiers used it to cook food in Vietnam. If you have sad vegetables, carrots, celery, or lettuce that look wilted, not bad, you can make them crunchy by shocking in ice water. What kind of voltage are we talking? Deleted. And if it breaks, they don't come get you through a hatch in the roof like in the movies. They just go to the machine room, hand hoist it to the next door, open with a special key and get you out. There's also controls on the outside of the lift at the top, so when working on it you can ride it up or down while sitting on top. Had to do it a few times. Scary at first, but after a while super fun. Edit. So it seems us elevators have hatches. UK, where I am, do not have hatches in our lifts. Bedbugs don't make you a nasty person with a nasty home. An infestation isn't due to a sanitation issue. They're an imported pest, which means they're hitched a ride on something you brought into the house. Usually luggage or furniture. Not sure if it's true, but I heard they're more common in expensive hotels than cheap ones, because there are more international travelers. Deleted. Why do they turn the music up so loud though? It's just fucking annoying. In any given nature documentary, the protagonist animal you're rooting for is played by several different actors. That is, that one brown bear's story is patched together from footage of a bunch of different bears. And in about 90% of the animal reacting shots, they're reacting to the camera crew. Nature documentaries are heavily constructed. Also, all those amazing close-ups of bugs and small critters burrowing and stuff are done on a set in a studio. Honestly, when you learn about all the work that goes into creating such a documentary, it's even more impressive. Cement and concrete are not the same thing. Cement is the main ingredient in concrete, but concrete is the whole mixture of cement, sand, aggregate, water, etc. I feel like I relearn this every year. One of these times it will stick. Trains are so long we don't know if we are still blocking the crossing you are waiting at. We have measuring devices, counter, that tell us how far the head end has traveled, but they may have worn out enough to give us a bad reading. We try to avoid blocking crossings way more than you will ever know. But if I'm squeezing between two crossings because the dispatcher put me there, and my counter is off by 30 feet every mile, 5,280 feet, and my train is 2 miles long, us max is 16,000 feet, I'm going to accidentally block your crossing. It's also hard to stop. I go past a red signal, I get fired. So if I'm squeezing up to a red signal to get my rear end off your crossing, I'm seriously risking my job for your inconvenience. I do it, but a little patience would be nice. And just because everyone always goes there, yes, I have been made late to work by being blocked by a train. I have even been late to work because I was blocked by my own train. That crew was working until I got there, and had to work an extra 20 minutes because they couldn't leave until I got there, and I couldn't get there until they left. Damn, till trains can be up to 3 miles long. The point of most loyalty programs isn't to give you points so you'll shop more, though that isn't a bad thing. It's to gather data. That is, where do you shop, how often, how much do you buy there, what sort of things at what price points, etc etc. Dart. For us marketing types, data is king. Even small things like if a cashier asks for your zip code. Source: marketing professor who still actually works in marketing. A hysterectomy is removal of the uterus only, not the ovaries. The uterus is different from a vagina. I still have a vagina. Meredith Palmer from The Office. When a person flatlines, you cannot shock them out of it. Deleted. Therapy isn't something that happens to you. Therapy is a tool that you can use, and you need actually apply the skills outside of the therapy space. Also, change is hard AF. People really underestimate how hard it is to be able to do the hard work necessary to change via therapy. Lab-grown diamonds cost $2 per CT of electricity to grow. The value price has absolutely plummeted on them the last 2 years. Most especially the last 8 months. Don't overpay on them as they all perform. One CTS currently $6,800. So for the first time in the history of the jewelry world, you can officially buy moissanites from high-end brands that are more expensive than their lab-grown diamonds of same quality. The amount of people robbed of value the last 2 years is in the millions, and dollar amount unfathomable. Had a guy as recent as March spend $24,000 on a 3CT. Lab grown online when I was finding them for $5,500 at the time. Places are rushing to make money back from buying in bulk. There will be a documentary about this someday. What are the online shops that I can trust when shopping for lab grown? I was thinking to get moissanite, but if lab grown diamonds are cheaper, then that's worth looking into. Volumetrically, most rocks are made of mostly oxygen. Most of the entire Earth, crust and mantle, is also nearly half oxygen, by mass. If you've ever read oxygen discovered on moon dart, it's rocks. It means they've discovered rocks. That both makes a lot of sense and no sense at the same time. People, users, are the weakest link in most technology systems 99% of the time. Truth. I fix checkpoint security equipment and explosive detection systems for a living. Fixing the machine that they broke is the job, but showing them what they did to it, why it happened, and what to do in the future, is what makes it possible for me to maintain great uptime on as many systems as I do. In archaeology, it's super awesome and great that you brought stuff to an archaeologist at a local dig site near you of things you found in your backyard or nearby asking us appraise it, but the thing is, we're actually more interested in the context the items are found. We want to see the bigger picture. Arrowheads, flint knaps, trade beads, etc. are super cool, but they are worth so much more when we can tell if they are part of a hoard, burial site, ceremonial site, etc. If you haven't, check out the book Kindred. While it is about Neanderthal, it goes into how valuable all the layers of dust around the objects of interest are and how much info they get from it. Blew my mind how archaeology has advanced. Generally speaking, if you add the percentage of the body covered in third-degree burns and the person's age together, you get the likelihood of it being a fatal burn. 32 and 40% burn coverage, about 70% of people in that condition will die. And X200B. Source: Fiery, working closely with several doctors from burns units. Edit: I love the 100-year-old people comments and the people with 0% burns but entire 30s lamenting the 40% death chance. 100 years old and 0% burn? Sorry pal, that burn is fatal. Most public defenders are competent actually, but extremely overloaded. When I worked as a barista, how much fucking syrup is in flavored drinks? At the cafe I worked at, we measured flavoring by grams. If you got a large mocha, that motherfucker would have like 110 grams of chocolate sauce in it. If you want a little bit of flavor, I suggest only 1 pump, 2 maximum. I worked as a barista for Starbucks and once had to serve a customer that ordered enough syrup to fill a small cup of coffee. It was truly disgusting. Those high-end or expensive neighborhoods, they slap up really fast. Usually, gated communities and other semi-exclusive suburbs full of McMansions are built with the absolute cheapest materials and poorest quality and trained labor. Never buy a spec home without some serious research into what you're actually buying. All that luxury is barely surface deep. Daughter of an Australian builder here. Quality long-lasting building materials, think double brick, hardwood roof beams etc. are expensive to produce and in very short supply utilize a lot of natural resources. So instead they cut corners and use cheaper materials for the bones of the house. Many houses built these days won't last 20 years without major structural issues. Ironic because many builders are still charging premium prices for these heaps of shit. There is no fractured vs broken, there are only different types of fractures. It's really a semantic problem but patients get heated about it. When people ask if I've broken a bone before, I tell them that I fractured my wrist. The response usually is that doesn't count. The world runs on Ms. Excel. Edit: thanks for popping my gold cherry. Obligatory, you can have my Excel, after you ripped it from my cold, dead hands. WSJ8. Do you have macro for that? The sensors in digital cameras, including phones, are monochromatic. They don't see color, and have a tiny color filter on each sensor element so it can detect one of 3 colors, red, green, blue. Then the image is created by calculating what the other 2 colors might be based on one color value and the values of the nearest sensors around it TLDR. 2/3 of the color in a digital photo is calculated from the 1/3 that is actual data. That's both simple and surprising at the same time, for someone who barely understands technology. Mushrooms are genetically closer related to humans than to plants. Ask the right mushrooms and they'll tell you this themselves. If a website is slow, there's a big change. It's not because the developers did a bad job, but because marketing insisted on putting dozens of trackers and ads on it. Except them tracker developers. Those did a bad job in addition to selling their soul to the wrong cookie monster. If your baby toddler has chronic or recurrent ear infections, it's important that you literally get in their face when talking to them, or at least make sure they're looking at you when you speak. In addition to raising the volume of your voice and exaggerating your words, let them see and feel, through airflow and vibrations, how words are produced. This may prevent the need for speech therapy and/or intervention for auditory processing problems later on. Water is destructive. We just want to make it all drain at a reasonable velocity along largely historical flow lines to the closest inlet. I'm a geotechnical engineer, doing my best to keep creeks and streams and rivers and landslides from destroying infrastructure. My boss, an engineer nearing retirement overseeing IDK how many other engineers, was raising a question about why we couldn't design a permanent repair to prevent erosion over a facility. And X200B. It's water. It destroys everything. It is the great equalizer of geology. The tallest, mightiest, hardest mountains will eventually be brought low by a creek dancing across its surface and rain pattering down on top of it. You can delay the destruction, but if you want true long-lasting prevention of erosion, it's going to cost a ton of money. Anyone telling you otherwise knows their product will last just long enough for the warranty to expire or for them to move on to another company and it's not their problem anymore. There has never been a confirmed case of an art heist commissioned for a private collection. Heist movies like the Thomas Crown affair just don't happen. There's no money in stolen artwork, because provenance is tracked very closely, so you can never tell anyone you have a stolen painting. Art forgery on the other hand. Breathing in mystery dust from drywall, insulation, carpentry, tile cutting, or any other dust forming activity can cause lasting effects if breathed in for long periods of time. That N95 is important. Mask wearing is also important for horticulturists, landscapers, even if you don't work in hardscaping. Growing mediums, especially in organic substrates such as perlite and pure clay, shed particles that you will regret inhaling in 20 years. Microorganisms are good for soil. That does not mean they are good for you. Don't eat them. Don't inhale them. Being nice and patient will give you a bigger chance of getting a refund or a new of whatever is broken, than being angry and blaming the random worker. Being nice and patient and respectful when I had valid reasons to be a dick about it, has got me many surprise upgrades to suites, meals comped, bumped into business class, etc etc. Lawyers can fix almost any mistake, fuck up blown deadline in state court and almost never in federal court. Why is that? Deleted. When I worked at an optical lab we made lenses of all types of materials, but yes, polycarbonate was a big one. Citrin is usually heat-treated amethyst. We have cameras that can see what is in your trash as we dump it. Some companies even take snapshots of every can's contents to catch hazmat items. They bill the city with the address it came from, and the city could follow up with the homeowner for reimbursement if they choose. How crappy, in general, people are at making sure they are recycling the right items and properly cleaning some of their items before putting them in the recycling bin. We remember the houses with issues, people that try to double dump, overfill, and dump hazmat. We watch for those offenders specifically. We will pull out cans for handicapped people, dump them, and put them back. You have to call and have that set up though. The garbage man knows what's going on in your neighborhood. almost as well as the mailman. Listen, man, just please don't tell my wife I buy RBs at random sometimes. The opposite sides of a die should always add up to 7. On a craps table, you'll see the stick dealer bring the dice to the middle of the table and separate them corner to corner. This is so the person sitting down, box supervisor, can verify with the mirror opposite of them that the opposite sides total 7. 2, 5, 1, 6, 3, 4. Source: 14 plus years of dealing table games. Edit: apologies. I should have included sides of a 6-sided die. To clarify, opposing sides of an n-sided die should equal n plus 1. It works for all polyhedral die where sides are oriented to directly oppose one another, which I'm pretty sure is all of them. If your dice don't follow this rule, they're bunk. Toss M. I work in acrylic sheet. The number of people who do not understand what translucent means is astounding. Translucent equals transparent. Translucent is solid color that allows light transmission, it glows. Transparent is just that, transparent. We have customers call us all the time, telling us we filled an order wrong, that they received a solid color and ordered translucent red. Edit: thanks for all the upvotes and thoughts. For clarification, majority of these customers order online either through our website or Etsy. Both sites have dozens of pictures and videos explaining and showing the differences. But the guy in the boys was invisible. The ER is there to keep you from having a catastrophic outcome in the next few hours, days, or next few minutes, in some cases. If nothing irreversible is going to happen for several days, they don't really care what the problem is. So the ER is for emergencies? In movies they unnecessarily yank on horses' reins, practically ripping their mouths out. Anytime you see their mouths open with a bit pulled way back in there, they are not having fun, and it's for no reason other than maybe drama, and the trainers are shitty for letting that happen. Most of the commands and controls used on horses are in the legs and balancing body weight. The reins are for gently guiding, and at worst for getting them to put their head in specific spots. The best riders barely use the reins and usually only one hand lightly to keep the horse in check. Historian here: everything you read, regardless of source, has the biases of whoever wrote it woven throughout. I will tell a much different account of a Roman battle if I am a Roman citizen than if I am a Gaul. Same goes for modern times. I will tell a much different account of an event as a liberal woman than if I was a conservative man. That's why checking and vetting sources is our biggest advice. Remember the context that the author is writing from when you're reading. Casino dealers do have some control whether you win or lose. We can't control the cards or the numbers, but we can control things like speed, entertainment, and the amount of high-value cash chips we give you. Slowing down the game is your best bet. Busy tables and complicated bets are your friend. That you can fix 85% of your issues with a restart. How do I restart my life? There are different parts to your blood that must be treated differently, which is why different tubes are drawn when you have labs done. It takes a small army a week to shoot a 30-second commercial. It really depends on the concept and the budget. Some spots are shot in half a day with less than 10 people involved. Others are like filming Godfather IV. Deleted.